Hey there, buddy, Paller here, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a longer look at World of Warships. So if you haven't seen it yet, I did put up a short video covering my basic opinions on World of Warships, and this video is going to build off of that. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'd recommend go watch that first. We will be covering most of what I went over there, but there's going to be some elements I'm going to gloss over rather quick because I'm there in that video, and go into more depth with some of the greater things in this video. Now, this video I felt was needed as World of Warships has a surprising amount of depth to it, at least in the beginning of the game, for what seems to be a relatively simplistic game. Even a game that I do like very much. On the surface, it seems fairly simple. You sail out, you shoot at the enemy shoots at you. What else is there really to understand? Well, what's to understand is the way the ships are built, the classes of them, and the different strengths and weaknesses of them. So, let's take a look here. We're going to dive into, let's go to the Isakazi. This is one of my favorite ships that I currently have. It's a little torpedo boat. So you can see here it's got three torpedo batches with two in, and then just a few guns. The guns on this thing are rather terrible, but the torpedoes on it are actually surprisingly good. So what we're going to dive into a little bit here is if we expand out some of these, we're going to take a look at some of these numbers. So the first thing we're going to notice is our main battery guns fire 9.1 kilometers. They have a 9-kilometer range. The damage on these guns, depending on how we look at it, there's both high explosive and armor-piercing rounds. The high explosive rounds do 2,000 damage, the armor-piercing rounds do 1,800 damage. The reason this would come into play, if you were fighting a battleship, in theory the way they want the game to be set up is you would use AP rounds. High explosive rounds are for weaker ships. Basically, an armor-piercing round fired at a weak ship can punch straight through. It'll go in one side, out the other side, do minimalistic damage. So if you have a ship with a low amount of armor, you want to use high explosive rounds that are going to light it on fire. If you have a ship with a lot of armor that's not going to burn very well, you want to use armor-piercing rounds. Now, there's a whole lot of other numbers that unfortunately aren't even in the game that dictate what depth these rounds can penetrate in. Basically, a 120 millimeter armor-piercing round is not going to penetrate hardly anything in this game. When we look at this, according to this ship, we see with these two different numbers, a difference of the high explosive actually doing more damage. We can determine that for this destroyer, we really only ever want to be using high explosive rounds. There's no reason to put on the armor-piercing. We know this mostly from practice. Unfortunately, they don't show the numbers in-game. Apparently, Wargaming.net is putting together a wiki that's going to have these numbers in it. We're going to talk about this a little bit more here in a sec. But that's the first thing we're going to look at. Next thing we're going to check out is we're going to expand out our torpedoes. And we're going to see our torpedoes have a 7-kilometer range. And then they travel at 42 seconds, 68 knots. 68 knots. So basically, it can cover those 7-kilometer range in a little over 7 seconds. Pretty darn good speed there. We're going to be able to get torpedoes downrange relatively quick. They also have a 42-second reload time, so there's quite a bit of time between loads. But mainly we're worried about this 7-kilometer range. The reason this becomes important, if we look in concealment here. So the way the ships are done is if you're not shooting, if you're just sitting still quiet, for another ship to see the Isakazi, they would need to be within 6.1 kilometers of it, or an aircraft within 2.8 kilometers. So, when we look at this, we can say that this guy can get within range to be able to shoot both his main guns, but more importantly, his torpedoes, without being seen. We actually have a 0.9, almost 1 kilometer sweet spot where we can drop torpedoes and speed away without being seen. I talk about the torpedoes because there's a whole nother element of the game that adds on top of that, where when you fire your guns, the primary cannons go off, it increases your detection range. We don't have the exact numbers. Again, this is something we're hoping they're going to put into the wiki, but we haven't seen yet. But for a destroyer, it's roughly 4 kilometers. So when we fire our guns, our detection range goes up to about 10.5 kilometers in range. All of a sudden, we can be seen much, much further away. For a ship like this, where the main cannons are not all that great, the reason they're not all that great isn't so much their damage, but if we look here, and unfortunately I can't mouse over it, but you'll see the rate of fire is 6 rounds per minute, which is okay, but the 180-degree turn rate is 22.5 seconds. So they don't turn very quick. And for a ship this small, this ship is really, really fast. We got a maximum speed of 34.2 knots. You can actually turn faster than your turrets can rotate. So if you have your turrets on target and then you have to maneuver, you'll turn quicker and the turrets will never be able to keep up. It can be hard to keep the guns on target. It's one of the downsides of the Japanese ships. They tend to have slow turning turrets. So based on these numbers, we can establish that the Isakaze is designed to get within, say, 6.5 kilometers, drop torpedoes, turn, and run away. And if you play to those strengths, the game all of a sudden becomes much, much better. If you just go out there and you start shooting at targets as soon as you see them within range, like if you start shooting at as soon as the target's within 9.1 kilometers, in a destroyer, they're going to see you right away, and all of a sudden you're going to be under fire, and you're going to die very, very quickly. But if you play to the strengths of the ship, all of a sudden the game just changes. It evolves quite a bit. Now let's take a look at a different ship. This is one I talked about in the other video that I very much did not like. We're going to take a look at the U.S. South Carolina. This is the first battleship you're going to get on the U.S. side, and it is just bad. It's so awful. Now, why is it so awful? Well, let's take a look here. It's awful because the main guns on this guy, 10.2 kilometer range. Now, they do a fairly good amount of damage. If we look here, the main batteries, they have damage of 8,100 for armor piercing and 4,100 for high explosives. So the armor piercing rounds do a heck of a lot of damage. They're great for engaging other battleships. The problem, though, is this 10.2 kilometer range, and then you might have already seen it down here. We have a surface detection range of 13.9 kilometers, basically 14 kilometers. We can be shot at almost 3 kilometers further away, or we've seen and spotted 3 kilometers before our guns can even be in range to shoot. This is exacerbated by the fact that our ship only moves at 16.2 knots. What did we say the Isakaze was? 34? 38? I forget what it is. It was 34.2. So basically the Isakaze is twice as fast as the I forgot the name of it. The South Carolina is. There's really no way you can play to the strength of these numbers. You're not going to be able to close the gap very quick. When you do get within the range, any ships that want to, they can just turn around and run away from you. There's also enemy ships that have longer range than this. So there are ships out there that can very easily, and we're talking tier 3 and 4 ships, can stay 11 kilometers away from you, shoot at you, and you'll never be able to hit them. And they'll just, as soon as you start to close the gap, they'll turn and they'll run away from you because they're going to be faster than you. A good example of this is, I believe the St. Louis is roughly that range. Yep. So if we look here, the St. Louis, and this is a great ship for new players. We'll come back to why that is. The St. Louis has 14 guns, 14 primary guns that do 10.4 kilometers in range. Now, the guns aren't going to do all that much damage. They're not going to compete with the battleships rounds. But if we look here, we got 3,000 damage in armor piercing, 2,100 in high explosive, 10.5 kilometers, 10.4 kilometers. So basically, this ship could steam in close, steam into 10.4, 10.3 kilometers, fire off all of its rounds, turn and pull away before the South Carolina could even fire back at it because you'd be outside of range. This ship is not all that fast. At 22.4 knots, it's acceptable. Now, why did I say the South Carolina is a great ship? Well, early on, when you first get into the game and you start leveling up, you're going to go Erie, Chester, and then from there you have choice either the Samson or the St. Louis. I would highly recommend considering the St. Louis. The St. Louis with the 14 guns is really a great ship to learn from. So if we look here, we actually only have one directly forward-facing gun and one directly rear-facing gun, but these side guns here, these two here, these guys here, here, and here, have a very wide arc. They can fire rather far forward. So as long as you have a ship off to your front, no more than, say, at least 8 to 10 degrees off front, you can bring 4 or 5 guns to bear on that ship at a time. It gives the St. Louis a very wide firing arc in which it can really pepper ships all over the place. It is a really fun little early tier ship to mess around with. It's not super fast, it doesn't have torpedoes, and it does have a relatively long detection range at 11 kilometers, but with it, the amount of guns it has, especially if you start firing high explosive when you're looking at, I think it's 5% chance, 7% chance to set on fire, but you're hitting them with 8 rounds at a time, you can make your target burn a lot. They'll be burning most of the time if they're under sustained fire from one of these guys. Great little ship. It's ugly. It's really an ugly duckling, but it's a great little ship. Let's take a look here at the Phoenix. I think the Phoenix has a pretty long range. Yeah, here's another really good example of a ship that just makes the South Carolina look silly. The Phoenix, 12.5 kilometer range on its guns, 35 knot maximum speed. A Phoenix could literally just wear down a South Carolina battleship without ever coming into danger on its own if it's captained well enough. And this thing, it does have a fairly long detection range of its own, 13.1 kilometers. But, yeah, it just gives you an idea of where you can go for, what you can look for to understand your ships a little bit more, some of those extra numbers under the hood that are going on. There's another feature we really didn't go into, and you'll notice here I have a captain. So if we come under my profile and we look at the service record, you'll see here there's different levels that you level up. Currently there's only 8 of them. Oh no, they've added more in. Oh, this must have been added recently. They used to, I thought, only go up to 8. At rank 4, I believe. Let's see where it is. 5. Rank 5, you unlock ship commanders. This took me, say, 20 hours of gameplay. It wasn't quick, but it wasn't slow either. It was reasonable, I would say. Ship commanders add bonuses to ships that you can unlock. It gives like a little mini leveling procedure within the ship. So if we come back out here to the Phoenix and we click on our commander, we'll see we open up and we get this little bit of a talent tree type system. Now we could continue to save up as much as we want and put them in later on. Like we could save up and have 5 and go right to a number 5. No, I'm sorry, that's a lie. You have to put in at least enough points to unlock the next tier up. So we can't unlock 3 yet. But we can tailor our ship a little bit based off our captain to our preferences. Right now I have points in detect. No, I don't have points in situation awareness. We do want a point there. Yes. This will tell us if anybody can detect us, which is quite handy. We could add a little bit more expert rear gunners. Nope, that would be aircraft. We would want that on our aircraft carrier. Oh, let's see here. We could add loader. Nah, the Phoenix doesn't really need that. It's got a pretty fast rate. We could add turning radius. Nope. Torpedo armament. This would probably be okay. Actually, we probably want this. Anyway, we're down to 1 point. But if you go through here, I'm not an expert enough. I haven't done enough of this to really know. But your captain gains experience. As you go through, you can then put points in as needed up to, I don't know what the maximum level is. It's a nice little extra feature that doesn't really hurt anything. You can also then reset them for 50 doubloons. And, yeah, it's nice. It helps. Nothing crazy. But a little bit more depth to the game is always nice. We did talk about the modules a little bit in the other video, but we really didn't go into it all that much. The modules are generally linear upgrades. So let's go ahead and we have quite a bit of XP here, 2,500 basically for the Phoenix here. Let's give it a little bit of upgrades. Now, generally speaking, we're always going to go right down through if we wanted to get to the Omaha, but we can take a look here. So the reason they're generally linear upgrades, so right here we can upgrade from 152 millimeters 50 cal Mark 8s to 53 Mark 14s. This is going to increase our rate of fire by 2.6 rounds a second. It's going to give us plus another 100 damage on both high explosive and regular. But it's going to reduce our turn rate by 1.6 seconds. So that's the turret rotational rate. Is that going to be worth it? Probably. 1.6 seconds, we're still pretty fast. We're going to only be at 18 seconds compared to 16.4. The ship is quick, but it's not that fast that it'll be turning faster than that. You should still be able to keep your guns on target the entire time. However, we could, since we're almost at 2,500, we could go right for the chassis upgrade, which is going to give us more AA defense. It'll increase our number of turrets and our AA mounts. This could be handy. Plus, if we want to move on to the Omaha, this is definitely necessary. You can also look at our tower mod. This is going to give us increased fire range of 10%, another 1.2 kilometers. All right, that right there is a simple no-brainer. This takes us out to 13.7 kilometers. Our surface detection range is 13.1. It allows us to shoot before being seen. So yeah, we're going to take that right away. We're going to go ahead and research that. Boom. Yep, we're going to research it. Now, once it's researched, you then have to buy it. 110,000 whatever credits these are. Yep, we're going to go ahead and put that in. And now we have an upgraded Phoenix. Is it worth taking that 1,400, putting it in there? We might as well. You know, at some point I do want to max the ship out anyway, so I can start converting over the leftover XP into the premium XP. I can use that on other ships. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's upgrade that turret also. Yes. And confirm. Good, 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 good. Alright, there is one other little section that I didn't go over too much in the other video, and that's going to be mainly this, down here, these consumables. So, there are different consumables for different ships. This is easier explained looking at a battleship. This is going to tie a little bit into the premium market. I didn't dive into it too much because I didn't feel it had any real effect on the game, but in this longer video it is worth noting. So, depending on your ship, you're going to have different consumables that you can use. All ships get a repair, damage control repair consumable. And what this does is, depending on your class ship, it repairs your ship for 5, 10, 15 seconds. And any major damage you take gets repaired very quickly. By this, I mean you can get hit where your engines get knocked out and then you just slowly stop in the water and you can't move. Or your rudder can get destroyed and then you can't turn in whatever direction you were going and you just continue going in until the rudder is repaired. You can have your guns knocked out but not destroyed, where they're just damaged. This activation will basically repair them very quickly. If you don't do this, they do have their own internal repairs. Like if your engine gets knocked out, it might have a 90-second internal cooldown, where after 90 seconds it'll get repaired no matter what. But 90 seconds with no engine is a long time to just be sitting still in the water, unable to move. So you can activate this guy, and for the next 20 seconds, anything that gets destroyed is going to get repaired real quick. It then has its own internal cooldown time of 120 seconds. Now, what we can do, though, is we could upgrade and we could purchase a premium one of these using 15 doubloons, which does the exact same thing, but rather than a 120-second cooldown, it has an 80-second cooldown. This other ability here, Repair Party, battleships have the ability to repair a certain amount of hull damage. So as they take damage, they have three counts of this. They can repair 3 times for a total of 28 seconds, and it repairs 219 HP per second. So over the course of the game, you can extend out your ship's health by a few thousand HP if you use it. Now again, it has a 120-second cooldown. There's an advanced one that has an 80-second cooldown. So basically you're paying 15 doubloons, which is like 85-90 cents worth of real-world money, to save 30% on your cooldown. These also, once consumed, go away. They're a consumable. So at the end of each turn, or each time they're used, you have to enable a resupply in order to buy more of them. The other ones that are pretty obvious, if we look at a destroyer, right here you'll see the destroyer has a smoke screen. This drops down a cloud of smoke. You'll see it in some of the videos. This is a regular way of interrupting line of sight, improving cover for destroyers since they're very, very, very soft. Again, the normal reload time is 240 seconds. The advanced one is 160. This one here becomes questionable. Being able to get your smoke down that much quicker can be a big help. I wouldn't say it's overpowered, but it's kind of on that tiptoe line where it's getting close to it. Destroyers also get an engine boost, which increases your speed by, does it say how much? Maximum speed by 8%. And then you can get another one where the cooldown's 120 seconds instead of 8 seconds. 180 seconds. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any real opinion on them. I think they're okay. This smoke one's a little iffy, but destroyers are pretty squishy anyway. I don't know. There's one other little thing we can look at then, and we're not going to do it here. Let's put it onto, let's see, let's put it on the Wyoming. I'm going to have to use this guy for a little while. So, there is a flag system within the game. Not that, we want the signals. And what will happen is you go through, as you do certain things within the game, you get awarded these signals. They're basically these flags. Some of them are for getting the first kill in a round. Some of them are for getting a kill after you've died. So basically, if you lose to a ship, but right before you lose, you drop torpedoes in the water, and you end up sinking another ship with your torpedoes, but you're already dead, you get another flag and stuff. There's different ways to get them all. If we mouse over them, let's see this one here. For without fire, what does it say? Yeah, this one's fireproof. Let's see, this one here is First Blood. This one here is, it's just a flesh wound, so this is taking damage. Come Confederate. I don't remember exactly what they're for. But anyway, these flags give direct boosts to your ship. They're kind of small, but they're direct boosts. And these can only be used via or earned via gameplay. So, on a battleship, yes, we want this guy right here. 100% minus 100% risk to magazine detonation. We definitely want that on. We're going to go ahead and mount that on there. Now you see we got a little flag hanging up there. We're going to go ahead, minus 20% credits, or plus 20% credits earned in battle. We might as well put that on there. Okay, minus 20 time to fire. Yes, definitely want this. As we spoke about earlier, battleships are going to be hit by a lot of high explosive rounds just trying to light us on fire because the smaller cannons can't penetrate our armor. We're going to want that. We're probably going to put all of these on. Plus 50% XP earned in battle. Yep, we're going to want that one. And we're going to want this one might as well. Repair costs. When you do come back, we'll come back to that real quick in a sec. So there we go. We loaded up our flags. If we get some more of these, and you can also go through and when you're done and you're ready to get rid of this ship, you can just demount it and then you can sell the ship and go about your way. There's no charge here. It's just the more you earn, the more ships you can equip with it, or you got to move them around manually between ships. Give your ship a little bit of flavor. There is a camouflage, nothing but cosmetic here. It's not for me. It's only a few thousand gold, so what's the big deal? Let's see which one looks cool. That one or that one? I think I kind of like this one. No, this one. No, not for that cost. Anyway, I spoke a little bit about a repair cost. So, when you come back from being out in a battle, if you make it through the battle without dying, you return, you have a repair cost. Depending on how much damage your ship took, you're going to get a certain amount of credits. The credits you get are going to be dependent on how well you did in the game, and then they're going to deduct from that a repair cost to repair your ship. If your ship is destroyed, you're sunk, it's going to be the full cost. If you've only took 10% damage, it's going to be relatively low. In the early tier ships, you're almost always going to be getting more credits than you're going to be costing you to repair your ship. I can't speak to the later game because I haven't actually seen it, but I've heard quite frequently that the tier 9, tier 10 ships are so expensive that you lose money when you actually go out. So you're almost incentivized to play like tier 5 and tier 6 ships to make money without running out. And exchange for doubloons too. I never even realized I could do that. Exchange bat equals there. So how many, what do we have? 10? Oh no, doubloons for, yeah. I was doing that backwards. I thought we could exchange regular currency for doubloons. No, you can exchange doubloons for regular currency. My bad. I did know that, I just forgot about that. Okay, what else have we not covered? The one last thing we really need to cover is the ports. So down here you'll see I have several different ships, but if I scroll all the way over, it's telling me no more slots available. Basically, when you first start the game, you have 6 port slots. You can have up to 6 ships. If you go beyond that, you either need to purchase another slot for 300 doubloons, so like $2.50, or you can sell off one of your lower tier ships and then buy and put the new ship in it. So like when I got the Langley, in order to get the Langley and equip it, I had to open up a port slot. And rather than buy another one, I forget what I sold. I think I sold the South Carolina. I think it was the Wickles I sold. I got rid of the Wickles. No, I have the Wickles. I don't know. I sold some ship. Anyway. It's okay. $2.50 for a ship slot, and the fact that you start with 6 of them, I think that's reasonable. I've purchased 2 more, so I've spent another like $5 to get 2 more ship slots. Boy, that's tough to slip slots, something to that effect. Oh. Yep, that's about it. What else do we have to talk about? We covered all that. The actual gameplay. I started going into this in the other video, but in order for time constraints, it didn't go too far. I really must rave about how good the gameplay is. That build-up of slow anticipation as you're getting close to the enemy, and then all of a sudden you're in range and you start firing, and the rounds are going out, rounds are coming in. It is really, really quite entertaining. And it's almost a shame that we don't see more games like this. You know, if we look through the video game libraries out there, there are quite a few games that do pirate ship based combat, and then there are quite a few games that do space based combat, but there aren't a whole lot that do relatively modern naval style combat. There was the Battle Stations Midway and Battle Stations Pacific games. Pacific, not specific. Yeah, anyway. And they were lackluster at best. I actually ended up playing and beating both of them all the way through in their campaigns because I do like the theme quite a bit. But yeah, they were just average games, and now they're really starting to show their age. Unfortunately, they are on PC. Fortunately, they are on PC. Unfortunately, they didn't have a very good port. They only have mouse controls. Piloting an aircraft with a mouse, not the best experience. And there you do actually take control of aircraft. The one thing that I always go back to, and the best way I can really describe it, and I'm going to put a little clip up here in a bit, there's these certain moments in almost every single map where everything is just going nuts, and you're trying, and you're either going to fail or succeed. And what you're about to see here in this little clip is hunting an enemy destroyer. I'm in a destroyer myself. I'm in the Isakazi, and I know there's a destroyer somewhere in this smoke cloud. I'm kind of closing the gap, proceeding slowly, waiting, and I noticed that there's 3 torpedoes off to my left. I believe that's the port, and they're relatively far away, and I assume, all right, he dumped his torps, and I see them go by. There's pretty clear. I'm like, I moved away from him. I got plenty of room. So I turn in, and I start steaming directly towards the cloud, and as soon as I turn, there's 2 torpedoes coming directly at me in a narrow spread. And at this point, by the time I see them, they're less than 2 kilometers away. I'm going full speed at them. They're coming full speed at me. There's no way for me to turn left or right and avoid them. And in a destroyer, a single torpedo of this size is probably going to sink me. I might be able to take one. But what will likely happen if I try to turn, the tail end of my ship's going to come around. I'm probably going to take both of them. There's almost no chance I survive this. So instead, I thread the needle, go right down the middle of them, and you watch this video. There's barely enough room for my ship to go between it. And it's one of those crazy dopamine, mini adrenaline rushes. You're sitting there and you know, oh man, if one of these hit me, I'm dead. I'm out of this round. I got sank without doing anything. You thread the needle and you come out the other side. It's like, holy crap, how did that happen? There's so many moments like that in this game. I have this other clip here where I was hunting this carrier. I knew there was a carrier down here. I'm closing in on it, but this battleship notices me coming, and he turns and he's coming right at me. And the way I'm in, there's no way for me to get away. He knows I'm there. I'm within range of his guns. I'm not going to get away. So I just decide to, you know what, I'm going to drop torpedoes on him, and I'm going to see if I can burn him down faster than he can burn me down. Hopefully I can get under his guns. And as I do this, I drop my torpedoes. All of a sudden, I get the little pings on my HUD telling me I have torpedoes, enemy torpedoes, or torpedoes relatively close to me. And I spin around, and a friendly destroyer back a few kilometers behind me had also dropped torpedoes, and I ended up sailing directly in the line of path of his torpedoes coming in. Without even seeing them, somehow I had 1 torpedo pass in front, 1 torpedo pass behind me. Pure blind luck that it happened. The one in front of me just barely missed. What makes it even crazier is if you watch this clip as it plays out, the only reason I survived this encounter with this battleship is the torpedo that passed to my rear from this other destroyer actually hits the battleship and does enough damage that when my torpedoes hit, it sinks him. If that other torpedo hadn't hit him, the battleship wouldn't have been sunk. I would have done quite a bit of damage. It would have been in dangerously low health, but he likely would have killed me. It's these moments that are just really engaging with this game. They're so much fun to play for this reason. And I am really enjoying it. I went into it quite a bit with the other video. The free-to-play model is reasonable, if a little overpriced for some of the premium ships, but as long as they're not overpowered, I don't really care. The doubloons, I think, are not just reasonably priced, they're well priced. They're consumer-friendly priced for what you need. When you can get a new ship slot for about $2.50, you know, when you can convert all the XP you need for about $3, that's not too bad. We could do far worse in that manner. And the ships themselves are just interesting to me. And that's probably something I should have said in the other video. I should have gone in a little bit more. My opinions on this game are probably skewed a little bit. I am a bit of a military technology buff, nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a military historian. That's not my thing. Who fought in what battle, what unit was there, that doesn't really matter to me. But I do like the technology. I like the ships and that. And just that theme interested me in this game enough that the gameplay then is just the cherry on top of it. And that's why I could play the Battle Station Midway game, which wasn't very good, but I still enjoyed it just because we don't get this all that often. I think if there's anything going forward, the game needs two things to really, really push it over the top and make it really good. The biggest problem with the game currently is there is no skill-based matchmaking system. So when you decide to queue up and play a battle, basically what it'll do, if you queue up in, say, a Tier 4 cruiser, the game is going to look for the exact same ship that somebody else is piloting. So if you're the Japanese Tier 4 cruiser, it's going to look for the other Japanese Tier 4 cruiser. It's going to put them on the other team. If it can't find that, it's going to look for the American Tier 4 cruiser. If it can't find that, it'll then look for either American or Japanese Tier 5 or 3 cruiser and put it on the other ship, or on the other fleet. So if, like, maybe you get matched up, you're a Tier 4 cruiser, they put a Tier 5 American on the other side. Well, then you have a Tier 3 destroyer queue up. Well, the Tier 3 destroyer ends up on the other team, you end up with a Tier 4 destroyer on your team. So, technology-wise, the ships doing, the fleets ended up being relatively balanced. But what's not taken into account here is the difference between a Tier 3 and a Tier 4, somewhat negligible. A good captain in a Tier 3 is going to do so much more damage and be so much more helpful to his team than a bad captain in a Tier 4. And there's no accounting for that within the game's frame right now. There's no skill adjustment for that. And I can understand how it happened. You know, it's until they have a massive player base, and they may never get to that massive player base, how do you matchmake that the ships, you don't have overpowered ships or overpowered captains? I really don't know the answer to it. Something needs to be done, though, to improve this a bit. The way it plays out right now, you'll go on these 4-5 losing streaks where you just get stomped. The other teams just, every time you turn around, they're just stomping your team into the ground. You have friendlies sailing into other friendlies, sinking each other. I had one round. Oh my god. I had one round. At the very beginning, we had a destroyer, torpedo, and sink a friendly cruiser. Some 30 seconds later than that, we had a friendly carrier rear end a friendly cruiser that was trying to avoid torpedoes from a torpedo bomber. Both of them got hit by torpedoes, and then both of them sank because they were ramming each other. Within the first 4 minutes of the game, we're down 3 ships, and it was entirely self-inflicted. When that happens, it's so painful to see. It's like, oh my god, what is these teams? Over time, it does work out, because then the next day, you'll be on a team that wins 5 in a row. It's like, well, now our team's great. Look at these other idiots we're playing against. Look at them. They're sinking each other. Ah! But when you're on that losing side, it's rough. The smaller gripe I have with the game is lack of variety in game modes. I can accept that there's not a lot of map variety. You can only do so much with open ocean, right? You have open ocean with islands, open ocean with different islands, maybe open ocean with icebergs, and that's what's in the game. I can take that. The game modes, though, they could do something here. There's room for improvement with the game modes that I can make up a few ideas right off the top of my head. So currently in the game, they say there are 3 game modes, and technically there are. The problem is all 3 game modes play out almost exactly the same. So in every game mode, there's some sort of point to be captured. And in order to capture the point, you got to sail within this large ring. It's normally about 4 kilometers apart across. And while you're in it, it's depending on the game mode, it takes anywhere from 30 to about 90 seconds to capture over to your faction. If you take damage while in there, it resets everything back down to 0 and you have to start it all over again. So if you're combating over the central point, it's almost impossible to actually capture it. So in one game mode, there's a single central point. Whoever either sinks the enemy fleet first or captures that point wins. Since there's only one point, and this mode's not bad, everybody sails towards it, you have a nice close fight with lots of chaos and everything, but the point itself is almost irrelevant. By the time the battle's done, that's when you're going to decide who wins. So basically one fleet will finally get up and they'll have 6 ships left, and the other fleet will have 2 ships left, and a few people go off and hunt the remaining ships while they cap the point. Done. The second mode is each team starts with 1 capture point, and the team that manages to capture the other team's point while protecting theirs wins. Well, again, since you start at your point and sail towards the other point, you aren't going to be able to capture their point unless you destroy 2/3 or so of their fleet. So it plays out almost exactly the same. The third game mode is 3 neutral capture points, and then like a conquest style ticker. The first team to get 1,000 points wins. This one plays out a touch different, just because there's 3 points, you spread the map out a lot more, and normally each fleet goes to 1 point, and then you battle over the middle point, and whoever wins goes ahead and wins the match and everything. So as I explained, like all 3 game modes play out very similar. Just off the top of my head, I could see a game mode where the one I would really like to see is kind of a channel run, where on one end of the map there's 2 large land masses on the left and the right with a channel down the center, and the enemy fleet spawns in front of that channel, and you have to get as many of your ships as you can through the channel. So you would either take all small light ships and try to run them through and leave the others behind to be destroyed, or you could get into a large battle and try to break the enemy fleet. I think that could be interesting. You could do a slight take of that with a base, an island-based structure system that has key points to be destroyed, and this way the one fleet has to defend it, the other fleet has to attack, and you can either sit way back and lob in rounds from long range, and the other fleet will have to come out and engage you, or you try to destroy them. There's things like that. I think you could also do some interesting game modes that would just be distractions, like a destroyer-only mode on a really small map. I think it wouldn't be competitive, but I think it would be fun. Or a battleship-only mode, I think could also be really fun. Some type of more game modes would really be nice for the game. But when it's all said and done, I've said enough about this game. I clearly like it, and I really do. I think it is a very good and enjoyable game. With it being free to play, there's really not much more I can say about it. It doesn't hurt you to go download it and try it. Within 2 or 3 hours, you're going to know if you like the gameplay or not. And you don't need to invest any money into it. And before you even need to consider it, you're 12 hours or so in before you get to like the South Carolina, which is like, ooh, I don't want to drive this thing. Like, let's get money. So there's no real negative downside not to give it a try. But I think for people that want to play something once or twice a week that just has a different flavor to it, this is a really solid entry. I think if they market it correctly, do the premium store correctly, this could be a very successful game. It needs the right marketing, and it needs to stay with a good, clean, free-to-play model. But that's about all I can say about it. If you've played the game, let me know what you think about it, what your opinions are on it. If you enjoyed this video, I'd ask you to give it a thumbs up. That helps me get noticed more on YouTube. But until next time, this has been Paler. Thanks for watching.